Here on Treaty 7 territory, nestled in the Rocky Mountains with the mighty Bow River at an altitude of 1,309 meters. Born from coal dust in 1884 and ever-changing, this is Canmore, and we are Canmorites, and this is the Canmorite podcast. Let's go. Hey everyone, it's me, Jeff Maw from the Canmorite podcast, and here I am with
Paul from Outside Bike in Canmore.
Paul. Gosh, it's great to have you here from with having a shop representation here on the podcast. And how are you doing in the new year so far?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty excited about this nice warm weather and the prospect of maybe being able to hit some dirt in the next few days.
Amazing. It's kind of crazy because here we're getting tons of snow, but at the same time you could also ride bikes. So Paul, like one of the things that we're like talking about, and I think it's been getting a lot of attention in the Bow Valley, which I think is great and it's timely, which is like the CAT MP. It's formerly known as CATS, Canmore Area Trail Strategy. Now it's called Canmore Area Trail Master Plan. And we're kind of in this interesting zone right now where the deadline for public feedback for the proposed plan that's been put together of parks with a lot of public engagement feedback is this coming up January 21st. And so I've been doing a couple of podcasts with it. I know Bow Valley Engaged, they did some more stuff on it as well. And I also wanted to kind of talk about it from you because like, I feel in a lot of ways, Paul, I think you're a bit of like an icon in the valley for like riding bikes and just kind of curious about your thoughts on the plan initially because you've been a part of it kind of pretty early, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be in the loop. I haven't been directly involved in the plan per se, but having been one of the founding members of CAMBA and, having some respect in the riding community, a lot of people have asked me for input and questions. And so overall, I'm super excited about what looks like is coming down the pipe. All the people involved, all the user groups that have put in their input, I think they've done a great job. Looks like there's a a potential for a super cool balance of wildlife, rehabilitation in terms of areas
like
habitat and whatnot. And then this is the first time that we've ever seen the opportunity to have cool mountain bike trails built in the valley that are allowed to be directional and not two-way trails.
And potentially even sanctioned as well.
And sanctioned trails as well,
For sure.
So super exciting times. And I think it's great to have everybody putting their input, and I think everybody should check it out and put some more input in it, especially from the mountain bike community. I mean, that's the community that I'm the most passionate about, and the activity that I think has been a little bit left in the dust in the valley, in the 20-something years I've been here. Right. We've seen very little progression of our mountain biking, and we have phenomenal terrain, and there's a plethora of unsanctioned trails that there's a lot of users that really enjoy using. But at the same time, it creates conflict with wildlife. It disperses our wildlife. But as a rider group, people want these trails. They want technical trails. They want trails that go fall line, and we lack that as something that can work for everybody.
For sure. Like basically, I feel what happens, like you've been in the valley a lot longer than I have. I've only been here for about like 12, 13 years. But definitely one of the things that brought me to the valley and got me really excited to move here was the fact that we have trails, right? And trails are considered, I know Town of Canmore has done surveys in the past, and what is the number one amenity to like this amazing place? A lot of times the answer shows up. Is trails. And for sure, let's address the elephant in the room. I think what happens here in the Bow Valley, we have like a subset of trails that are, typically like the ones at the Nordic Center, Horseshoe area, and typically more like sanctioned official trails. They are of a certain category and a certain style and a certain level. And, I think for a lot of folks, that's a great starting point. But I think as someone like progresses in their riding career, if they want to get a little more aspirational, they want to ride harder stuff, a lot of those opportunities in a more sanctioned format have been like sorely lacking. And so what happens, people have created like what they wanted. Probably not in the best spots to do it, and maybe, conservation science back in the day, because I think some of these pirate trails, they've been around for like decades.
Yeah, before I was here, I was chatting to somebody the other day that said, these trails were being ridden in the early 90s.
Yeah, like here we are, like 35 years, right? And so like it's kind of the sort of thing where I do think it's fascinating where there's a lot of people that live in this sort of situation where like here we are in Canmore and they want to be progressive and help with the conservation piece and help with the wildlife piece, but at the same time they also want to ride their bike and unfortunately, this is the only place that's really kind of scratched that itch. For example, like the pirate trails and stuff. And I think it's like you, I'm also hopeful because if we can find some sort of new situations where we can have that similar style of trail in different parts of the valley that are not ecologically so sensitive, I think that's a huge win. Yeah.
I think it's awesome, right? People want fun trails to ride for all abilities, all levels. We have this spectacular valley that has some definite wildlife and ecological sensitivities, and from CAT's MP, from the looks of it, they're looking at that and they're trying to figure out where we can create this space for everybody to use and where we can do it well, living with wildlife and allowing the wildlife to live their best life.
For sure.
Whether that's around construction or ecological concerns, both of which are, massive changes to our valley.
Totally. I also feel like, there's just been so much development in the Bow Valley. It's like really, I think when it comes to what's affecting wildlife, hugely, development is like a big piece. We all live in houses, we all have accommodation here in the Bow Valley. And so the trails have been kind of like the secondary piece. And here we are trying to make it a bit better. I don't think it's fair to hang all the trail the destruction of habitat to trails. I really think the development piece, which is a big piece, but here we are trying to affect this and move this into a better spot. Now, gosh, I feel I think sometimes, and I've just seen this as being on council, change is scary. People don't like change. People are nervous about change. People are cynical about things being different. And I think it's kind of cool that you feel that things are going to be moving in a different way. And gosh, my gut feeling too is the pirate trails that are quite used a lot, they're going to change regardless because of the fire breaks that need to come in.
Totally. Yeah. We're gonna see changes in that for the benefit of the community. We all live here. We all we saw Jasper. We don't want to be Jasper. We don't want to run into losing our houses because of a super dense forest that has not had a natural wildfire come through. So the fire break and the changes to that terrain to increase the animals returning to the habitat and whatnot. I think it's a necessity, and there's going to be some casualties of trails that come as a result, but it's pretty exciting to see that finally as a result of that and the recognition that there is a pretty big user group using these trails, that it's being acknowledged that we need to replace these trails with something that's equivalent or ideally better,
Ideally better, for
something
sure.
that's built up to a higher standard, that can handle more traffic, that can appease the desires of these and all user group levels to a certain degree. Provided we get rider input, and the people at Canmore are doing a phenomenal job, and I think they've done a great job. Nobody's perfect, so can't expect everybody to support everything that they've done or whatnot, but I think people have to look objectively at why things are being done, and it's all for the greater good, and I think it's only going to benefit the riding community, and and the CAT MP is going to, I think, benefit almost all user groups.
Yeah, and so you're pretty tapped into say the higher level rider, aspirational riders, and probably really enjoy riding some of these trails that will be eventually decommissioned, such as the Pirates. What do you think is one of their biggest fears are?
I think overall, people are scared that we're going to see a decrease in quality of trail. We've got some really neat trails in the valley that are really special, that you don't have to maintain hiddenness, and you can't be put on a map, and people that have been fortunate enough to experience them recognize that these are pretty special.
For sure.
they're trails that have seen some of the youth grow up here and become professional riders. We've seen the talent come out of the valley that's pretty amazing, and to lose that by just destroying them and not replacing them with something that can allow for progression, that can cater to all levels of riders, and bring the ridership skill level and quality of riding up. I think people are scared about that. So I think there's a good chance if the process is done right and the right people get involved, and people voice their opinion, and that we can get high quality trail built here.
Right.
And from what it looks like on the CAT MP, like, everybody seems to be on board that we need this and that there's a potential to do it. So it's just making sure that it gets done right.
Yeah. So one of my things is, like, oftentimes it's like devil's in the details, right? And so, like, the plans have come out, and I encourage everyone to look at, do your feedback. You can see the various maps for the regions. And like, I love the fact that I'm saying, wow, like, here we are, like above High Line. Now that we're in like less ecologically sensitive terrain, there's a set of trails that are being earmarked there. And then let's say, for example, like above the Nordic Center, there's like another section where there's like trails that can be earmarked for coming down. And I think one thing that I've heard people are concerned about is like, well, that's great that this other stuff is coming, but it's like, what's it going to be like, right?
And right now that's up in the air.
Right.
But as far as they've done the studies of what volume of technical trails we have, black, double black, blue, green.
Which ones are sanctioned, which ones are
sanctioned, which ones are not. And so if you look at the study and what there's being proposed, we stand to gain a substantial amount more black and double black technical trail in the valley that's sanctioned and official than we've ever had. And even, I think, if you count the unsanctioned stuff, they're still proposing that we end up with more of it. And we stand to have some huge descents. Like at the top of the Nordic Center, from the top to the bottom of the Nordic Center, which they want to link up, like, we stand to have 1,000-meter descent.
That's the sort of stuff you get when you're in like Europe. I remember like a few years back, I was in like France, and like that was the sort of thing where like you could be in some of these like mountain towns and work your way up, and like you said, like 800-meter, 1,000-meter descents. I think the one thing that I'm super keen on is that I have I kind of like trust the locals. Like, there's people that have been building trails in this valley, or they've like ridden the trails in this valley. They're familiar with the landscape. They understand like our dirt. They understand like the features and how this terrain works. I would really, really love to see, when it comes to like the design and the layout and the implementation of the trails themselves, that there be a lot of like that sort of expertise from our community being brought forward. Whereas these guys are putting in like the input, or they're actually doing the work. Like what are your thoughts on that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know Canva's in some preliminary discussions and trying to set up a committee that tries to grab that talent and tries to grab that input and that expertise. Obviously, because this in large part is in Parks land, there has to be a direct communication with Parks and a liaison. And they don't work with individuals; they work with organizations that have reputations. So Canva being a great figurehead to have that relationship, but being able to put some of that design concept and that implementation into people that have put shovels in the ground, that have the rider experience, that have the skill set, that have the eye, the knowledge, and that. I think that's key to do it. And I know behind the scenes already there is a gathering of those individuals that are in communication and are trying to figure out how to implement that and how to make that happen. And hopefully once that small groundwork of some of these individuals gets figured out, then there'll be an open reach to people to at least apply to become a part of this, and based off of their experience, their eagerness, and then there'll still be some great opportunities for people that say aren't necessarily one that's going to put their hand up and champion, hey, I should design and build this trail, but hey, I really want to help on this. I want to dig on this. I want to be somebody that contributes to this because I want to give back to these trails. And I want to make sure that I can have a part in making sure that these trails end up awesome.
Yeah, this is the stuff I want to ride. Like, I think if people put that sort of feedback in, that's really helpful. Because I think sometimes, people are like, okay, well, we're going to do something else. Let's just hire company X, Y, Z. And, and sometimes that works for some places. But I feel that in a mature riding community, like here in the Bow Valley, where people have like such a deep passion, because it takes a lot of passion to like cut these various trails in. And let's say a lot of them are illegal, right? And rather than like have these guys continue that sort of like mandate, let's get them set up in like a palette, like a canvas that they can actually work with that is like in a framework that's approved. I think like the possibilities of that are really, really impressive if we can get there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And what are some other sort of like challenges you think people have had like when they're hearing some of these like, oh, like changes coming down the pipe? Like,
I mean, everybody's scared of change.
Sure.
And historically, we really haven't seen change that's benefited the advanced rider group
Right,
in the valley,
for sure.
At least not change that's, been legal.
Right, for sure.
So it means that people aren't able to put as much time in as they'd like to because they have to work in the shadows and they fear being caught and they, they maybe aren't able to, create, the final quality of trail for sustainability or rider enjoyment. And I think it takes some time to prove itself, right? You hear a lot of down talk about, say, like our bike organization, Canmorite, right?
Right.
All they've done is try and benefit the rider community. They haven't ever had an opportunity to even be a part of trying to build advanced trails. So I think we need to have people support the organization. I think we need to have people that want to be engaged and involved step up to be engaged and involved. And you need a lot of different people with different skill sets and, stepping forward and saying, hey, I've got this skill set that can help out in this, I think would be super, super important for us. So you can always, it's way easier to doubt something.
For sure.
And to, kind of knock on it and hate on it. But we've never had a chance.
Right.
Like there's never been a chance where we've been legitimately allowed to create something cool in this valley. And from everything we're seeing, I know it's not finalized, but it looks like there's going to be an opportunity to put Canmore on the map and, maybe nix the idea that everybody from Canmore just wears spandex and rides cross-country small travel bikes. Right?
Right.
You go anywhere in BC and they're like, oh, you're from Canmore.
Yeah.
You guys just ride cross-country bikes and wear spandex, right? Yeah, exactly, right? So, which isn't the case, right?
Yeah, but like speaking of the stereotype of the Canmore rider, and I think this isn't even a stereotype. I think it's actually a truism. Like I think a lot of riders in Canmore have like crazy cardio capacity because all the trails in the valley have like really brutalist climbs. And I think like kind of, I know we've talked about like the descending side, but I think one of the things that brings me a little bit of hope with the new CAT MP plan is like more of like a dedicated up track sort of situation. Because right now I think like when people come to Canmore, or if you're brand new to mountain biking, Canmore is a savage place from a physical standpoint to even get your bike up onto the high line, to get your bike up the cloud line, to get your bike even in the Nordic Center up to like the top of the Albertan or like Nectar Noodle. Yeah. What have you heard about the like the other side of like getting up?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of having some dedicated climbs and directional trails, like actually having downhill trails and having uphill trails. So we'll have some big long climbs. Like I always tell people, like you come to Canmore for mountain biking, the price of entry is steep, and that's not just because bikes cost a lot of money. It's because to get up anywhere, the first time you do it, you feel like your heart and your lungs are going to jump out of your chest, and it's absolutely killing you. And it takes a lot of people a bunch of years to develop that fitness. So to your point, we've got some insanely fit people here, and the average rider here is very capable of pedaling up something for quite some time. But to be able to have longer climbs, right? Like with descents that can be almost 1,000 meters, that also means you get some climbs that can be 1,000 meters, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty awesome, right? And it'll be a climb that people will be able to push hard and not have to be paying attention for that rider coming downhill or have to whether it's the downhill rider or the uphill rider,
for sure,
pull over and stop or whatnot. and the idea that we are going to build some, some up tracks that maybe parallel a descent trail, or up tracks that get you to, partway up, and you're going to have some, blue and black trail down, but then you go further on the second half of the climb and you get to, your double black and your black,
So you
and
can
like,
work that totally makes a ton of sense. Like to me, like I've ridden a lot on Vancouver Island, and one of my favorite places is Cumberland. And there, I feel their climb trail that takes to the top of one of their trail networks, it's the gold standard. It's like one of these trails where you could ride it with a buddy, and you can literally have a conversation the entire time. And all of a sudden, you get to the top, and and usually someone says, "Oh, I can't believe we're here already." And like that to me. Like if someone could unlock that sort of a up track situation through the Bow Valley here, I think that would just be a game changer, as well.
Totally.
I can't talk on the way up.
For sure. There's not many people that can, right? I think it'd be great to see some of those improvements happening as well too. Again, it broadens the user group. It allows people to actually be safer on the way down, because when they get to the top, they're not absolutely smashed and don't have any energy to go down. And it also gets people out riding more, because there's a lot of people that just the thought of trying to climb up to get to where they get to go down is not worth getting off the couch for them, unless they're super passionate and engaged.
Or they want to get into the e-bike game, which is like a totally different thing. Right?
Totally,
yeah. Or like I would love to get my kids up higher up on the trail network, and I'm definitely not buying them e-bikes.
For sure, the kids still got to earn their turns.
Exactly,
right?
They got to get up there.
Yeah.
And so the feedback finishes up January 21st. Have you heard anything about timelines on like next steps? Because like I've heard rumors that money is starting to like kind of get allocated or starting to get positioned for potential things. So.
Yeah, I haven't heard any exacts. Obviously, having the full CAD MP finalized and signed off on is the first thing, but I know in the background, Canva is already working on trying to get the first stuff possible going. I know there's builders that are super keen to start looking at the terrain that's being allocated. I think up-track design is on a priority, because up-track design to a certain degree is going to dictate where the descent trails can go relative to that, because the up-track obviously, as a technical downhill trail, you can build something pretty steep, but an up track can only go a certain way.
100%.
But I have heard that on the Montaigne side of the valley, they're hoping to start construction on some stuff this year.
Oh, okay.
Hoping to start, doing some terrain assessment and some flagging on the other areas of priority, to at least start laying the groundwork. And I think it's super paramount that you can't just decommission trails before you build the trails. So I think it's, and Parks sounds like they've recognized that as well too, right? Like
that's huge. Yeah, because like for me, for like the process piece, like when I talk to some people that like ride these various trails, like for like not only do people like move here to the valley to ride bikes, for some of these people, like some of these areas, whether people like it or not, that is really to them their home. And if you don't give them a new home, a better home, you just take away their original home, they're going to do something else.
Totally, and then you're just going to see people building everywhere. And
right?
if we can get people on board, and the process goes right, I think it can be super successful. And I think we can get the areas that need to be protected. And whether that's decommission or ridership drops to the point of non-existence, because there's enough cool other trails that people are super pumped about and excited to ride. I think it can work, but it's got to be done the right way. Otherwise,
for sure,
you risk a bit of chaos.
Yeah, for sure. And because like otherwise, if you take away someone's home, it's not very hard for them to create something else, and it's like the Wild West. And that's like you said, Paul. I think the gold standard is like a few years down the road from now, we have like a new network that's got the sort of stuff that people are so keen and excited to ride. There's habitat reclamation, like continuity of like the corridors preserved, and everyone's just like really happy. And I don't think it's an impossible thing to do.
I think the possibilities, it exists. It's 100%. There. I think getting everybody's input as much as possible, and there's been a ton of people that have put their input in, and it's really good input, and it's really cool to see a lot of the mountain biking community putting their input in.
Yeah.
Constructive input is definitely, you know, the
For
best.
sure.
It's great. It's great to see people's passion in some of the negative comments, and it comes out of a straight area of passion. But
It's not
you know,
helpful.
yeah, we need suggestions. We need
Yeah.
the positive things. We need the support, right?
Yeah.
Because you know, ultimately, you know, the people at the top have the final decision, and if they're just being yelled at the whole time, and you know everybody's just coming at them, assaulting them, they can shut it down, and then it just fuels the cycle of a negative cycle.
Exactly.
For us.
Yeah. I just think, you know, we've just had so much development in the valley that we're really getting to the point where, like, the cumulative impacts of all the things that have happened, you know, we're getting to that point where, like, you know, there's not a lot of wiggle room left, and here we are. We have a plan that gives us like an avenue to like come up with something so great, and like fingers crossed, it can help ecologically. In terms, and I guess the other thing too is like, yeah, like there's other parts of the world where this has happened, right?
Totally. There's some phenomenal examples.
Yeah,
right. I mean, you look at Whistler's, you look at the Sea to Sky corridor, right? They've been able to integrate trail systems into their wildlife areas. I know everywhere has a different, you know, a different terrain and relationship and different concerns and things like that. But I think there's a real possibility. There's examples that exist, and I think where Canmore and the Bow Valley has lacked is there's been a lack of willingness to work with the user groups, and that's seen us lag behind. And I think, you know, the wildlife have seen that as an impact. The rapid growth we've had, you know, tons of construction. And how do you blame somebody? You know, like you can't blame somebody for wanting to live here. Like that's why we moved here.
Exactly.
You know, we're in a pretty unique spot where we can ride to just about all of our trails from anywhere you live in town. And not really have to go through traffic. You don't have to drive to trails. Like that's a pretty special thing that we have here, that you look at a lot of the top riding destinations elsewhere and you still have to get in your car and drive a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Paul, if there's any closing remarks you had, let me know and then we'll wind her down.
Yeah. I mean, I have hope.
And I think that's why I love you, buddy. Like you actually I think like you, I'm an optimist.
Yeah, and I've had my frustrations, you know.
For sure.
I've seen it, and having been riding bikes in the valley since 2002, by no means the longest, I've had my frustrations, and I've thought of moving other places to go ride bikes there. But I love my community. I love the people here. We have phenomenal terrain. I think let's use it and share it and try and create a space where humans, wildlife, construction, tourists, we can all share in this space and try and use it the best so everybody and everything, wildlife, human, you know, ecological, can all share this beautiful space we have and do it in a way that we can enjoy it for years to come, and yeah, everybody can be stoked, hopefully.
Awesome. Paul, thank you so much. Well, we'll call it there. And folks at home, you bet. So, you know, Canmorite ending up the episode here, but please check out, if you go to Alberta Park's website, you research like, you know, Canmore Area Trail Strategy, or Google, you know, Canmore Area Trail Master Plan, you get pulled to a page and you can provide your feedback. And there's levels of feedback. You can read the whole plan. It's big. You can be a little more succinct, totally up to you. But hey, if you love to ride bikes, or you love wildlife, or you love being here in the Bow Valley, this is generational change to one of the most important components of our society, our trail network, and I highly recommend you get your voice heard. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, bud.